Disney has been struggling over the past few years, and apparently lately, so has Bob Iger. He has been making some very big decisions. He has been struggling with what to do internally, how to make them the money that they are desperately in need of. But now, Disney CEO reportedly is exhausted and overwhelmed after the multiple box office flops just this year. I have a few different things that I want to show off, but before we get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, follow me on social media, and consider supporting through Patreon or via YouTube memberships. So it says Disney CEO Bob Iger is reportedly taken aback and exhausted by the multiple box office failures the company has experienced this year. For several decades, Disney has been one of the biggest and most successful companies in the world, especially when it comes to films, releasing countless animated and live action movies that have been raking in millions and have also gained much critical acclaim. However, this year, Disney has struggled to keep up with its success from previous years, with a significant number of its movies bombing at the box office. And I talk so much about Disney on this channel, and it's no surprise to a lot of you to see why. They are just not creating the content that people want anymore. Of course, they still have successful movies and TV shows, but the vast majority of content they're releasing has been met with negativity. I mean, just this year, they have been releasing so many awful movies and TV shows. It's insane, and we're going to go through the list in a second, but I have talked about this already, though reports suggest that the company has lost over $1 billion just in the past 12 months across several underperforming movies. Of course, we have Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. We have Elemental, a movie that they expected to do so well and it absolutely flopped. We have the live action remake of The Little Mermaid that, from what we heard and the last numbers we heard, just barely made its money back, but that does not even, get into the realm of profit. And then we have Haunted Mansion, which never picked up. They put, as far as we heard, over $200 million into it, and yeah, it did not double its money, meaning they never got into profit territory. They barely scraped by with that film. So they have had several large box office bombs when it comes to Lucasfilm and then the Disney side of things, but that's not even considering something like Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Guardians of the Galaxy did good. That is one of the few movies they've released that have done good, but Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, again, it did make them money, but not all that much. Probably not as much as they were expecting, so they have had loss after loss after loss, and apparently now, according to Bloomberg, Iger, who came out of retirement last November to save the company, is feeling the strain of Disney's woes. Sources close to the CEO describe him as overwhelmed and exhausted as he faces the company's current issues, which include diminished attendance at Disney World, a loss of Disney Plus subscribers, and the aforementioned box office disappointments. Disney and Bob Iger specifically are in a bit of a pickle right now because they have continued to push out products that people do not care about, and they still expect people to show up, which is, a major flaw for them. When it comes to all of these different movies that I've just listed off, there are plenty of them that could have been successful, right? Like Indiana Jones, if they had simply listened to what fans wanted for Harrison Ford's final outing as Indiana Jones, they didn't, end it with Phoebe Waller-Bridge actually saving the day, and they tried to bring in a lot of the nostalgia throughout the past several movies. I think that it could have been really good. Unfortunately, it just didn't end up that way, and it's so sad to me to see that was Harrison Ford's last film as Indy, and it just was a letdown. It wasn't the worst movie I've ever seen, but it also was nowhere near the best. I personally never had any hope for a Haunted Mansion reboot. I just didn't see that as a film that needed a reboot. And then we have these god-awful live-action adaptations. I didn't think the first few were bad. Like Cinderella was pretty good. Beauty and the Beast was pretty good. But then you get into the more recent ones with Mulan, that was just one of the worst movies I've ever seen, period. It did not represent the original in any way whatsoever. It was just god-awful. You also have Peter Pan and Wendy, which launched this year, that they clearly had zero hope for, seeing as they didn't even put it in theaters. They sent it straight to Disney Plus. And then The Little Mermaid. And next year, they're going to be facing most likely massive failure because Snow White is going to be releasing, and it sounds like there's no way that is going to get shelved. It may be delayed from its March 2024 release date, but it doesn't seem like they're going to scrap it. They've already filmed most of it. They need to start editing it. Like, they are going to launch it. But even looking at next year, they're going to face losses. This article also points out Elemental, how bad that went. Elemental, a highly anticipated movie that many expected to do well, had one of Pixar's lowest grossing opening weekends, earning only $29.6 million at the box office against a budget of $200 million. They seriously need to start listening to fans. I know that we say this all the time. You guys say it, I say it, so many of us say it. They need to stop pushing identity politics into their content. They need to stop hiring activists, and they need to listen to fan feedback. They need to look at what made the original Little Mermaid special, look at in the future what made the original Snow White so special. They need to look at what made Indiana Jones so beloved, and they need to think about what they're actually creating. Of course, now that the writer strikes are over, we have heard that the woke diversity hire writers are potentially going to be pushed out of the industry, because even though the writers' rooms and behind the scenes in the production teams, there are set numbers of members that have to be part of, like, the writing and the producing. That means that in combination with the fact that they're being paid more, these companies are going to want to hire the best of the best. They are only going to want to work with the cream of the crop, especially after they are seeing situations like this happen time and time again, where they're losing money. So that means that these woke diversity hires may be pushed out of the industry, and I can't really say I'm going to feel bad or I'm going to be sorry that this is happening, because in order to make way for good content again, they are going to have to get rid of these people. Stop hiring activists, hire passionate, very skilled writers, and of course, they need to hire better actors. I know that they're currently still facing issues because the actor strikes are not ending, and the ending is currently nowhere in sight, but they need to stop putting money into DEI-driven content. We don't want to see diversity and inclusivity shoved into our faces. If it was done properly and it was done naturally, it would be an okay thing to, of course, include diversity, but unfortunately these writers and creatives just are incapable of doing that. They always have to have some kind of message behind the casting, and then they have to actually listen to fans, which unfortunately a lot of people in the industry are just incapable of doing. Maybe now that CEOs like Bob Iger are going to be putting their foot down and they are going to be focusing on quality over quantity. And Disney's a company that's still got money, but eventually taking losses like this, your reserve cash runs out. Iger himself still has to answer to the board, and I'm sure there's a lot of frustration on the losses from the board too, but clearly the creatives that work under Iger, and possibly even Bob himself, care less about the losses because they're more concerned with the message, the politics, the DEI initiatives that are in their content. But look, once you've run out of money, you've run out of money, and ultimately, the investors aren't going to be happy, so that's definitely putting pressure on Iger. If he can't turn this around, or won't because he doesn't end up walking away from the content that's losing the money, most of which is, again, woke content, does he stay at the company? Will he retire or be forced to resign? I'm not saying there's even any rumors out there, but you've got to think about it. How long is he going to be given before he has to turn around this company? There's gonna be a time and money limit, and he's got to be running against it. It can only be a few years, and then what happens to Bob Iger? They brought him back to save the company, and he's yet to change anything other than, yes, what we saw come out of the strike negotiations so far. But yes, Disney has been definitely struggling over the past couple of months especially, but over the past few years for certain, and they still also have to deal with other films releasing this year, like The Marvels. Currently, Brie Larson's The Marvels is predicted to have one of the worst, if not the worst, box office grosses for the Marvel Cinematic Universe ever. So the year is not even done. The losses are not even done for them. I don't see this movie doing all that well. Of course, there is a bit of a rivalry going on right now with the Hunger Games Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and I did talk about this in a previous video, but the rumor is that, you know, because Rachel Zegler is starring in that, and their current cast of MCU females are in this, that it's going to be a bit of a box office rivalry. Only time will tell. But yes, their losses for the year are not even over yet, and the Marvels could have one of the worst box office grosses in the MCU history ever. But yes, apparently Bob Iger is sick and tired. He's exhausted. He's overwhelmed after multiple box office flops, and we'll have to see if, you know, the next 12 months brings more positivity for the company now that the writer strikes are over, the actor strike should be over in the next couple of weeks. At least that is the assumption, and maybe in the future Hollywood will get better. Maybe we will see things improve, but I unfortunately highly doubt it. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this, make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you didn't, make sure to give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.